Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Zoom, Facebook, YouTube. I'm Nicholas, and I'm the moderator for today. Thank you for taking time and to discuss about job opportunities in the esports sector organized by NTUC UPME Center. Before we start, if you don't mind, we're going to go through some house rules. First of all, there's strictly no recording of this session. Your cameras can be switched on and off, but there should be no indecent imagery. Your microphones will be put on mute by us to minimize noise disruption. We encourage you to raise questions relevant to today's topic anytime, and we'll try to address them as much as possible. Please be cordial and refrain from any abusive language and disruptive behavior. The format for today's session will be, first of all, we will update on the trends within the esports sector, share with you the issues and opportunities available, and how you should upskill yourself, prepare for this latest trend in the industry. After every talking point, we'll answer some burning questions asked by you that you submitted during registration. You can also type in your questions into the chat if you have any. Without any further ado, let me introduce our panelists for today. Here with us today, first of all, we have Mr. Melvin Yong, he's the Assistant Secretary General from NTUC, Director of U Associates, and MP for Redimas SMC. As Director of U Associate, Melvin oversees the PMET segment of the workforce. He's also the patron and advisor to SCOGA. Next, we have Alison. She's a seasoned curriculum developer. Alison has created unique and engaging educational content, learning through play, using popular esports titles to teach 21st century skills such as teamwork and communications. She has also helped develop and teach the diploma in esports and game design with SCOGA's partner, Informatics Academy. Finally, last but not the least, we have Stephen Sol Chong. He's a veteran in the esports scene, with his achievements being dated back to the first ever international competition of Mobile Legends. Since then, he has continued his venture into the scene, creating a strong legacy: 4 Mobile Legends Professional League Grand Finals in 5 seasons and 1 title to his name, cementing him as one of the best in the game. In addition, through Mobile Legends, he has been able to grow his knowledge on how to maximize a potential as an esports athlete from his various international experience, including representing Singapore in the most recent SEA Games and taking part in the upcoming M2 World Championships happening in Singapore next week. Without further ado, I'm going to invite Melvin to give us some opening remarks and address us. Thank you.
So very good evening to everyone joining us on the various platforms, on Zoom, on Facebook Live. Today's panel discussion is the 4th installment of our monthly webinar series organized by our NTUC UPME Center. The aim is to highlight job opportunities in the growth sector. So it looks like tonight's panel discussion, which focuses on the esports sector, is a very popular one. This evening, we have more than triple the number of people watching us across all our live stream platforms compared to our previous panels. Many people think that esports is just about playing computer games, but the esports industry requires many types of talents beyond just professional gaming. Companies are actively hiring for roles such as software programmer, game producer, game developer, and project manager, just to name a few examples. Many of these roles require specialist knowledge, which students can pick up at local game schools such as the DigiPen Institute and also Nanyang Polytechnic, which offer courses for aspiring game designers and artists. The growth of esports means that there are many opportunities available, especially for our youths. Developers are always looking to make their games more intelligent, more interesting, and more realistic. These will provide opportunities for us to develop our own talent in artificial intelligence, computer science, and even in areas such as physics and mathematics, as we ride on the growth of esports to create good jobs for Singaporeans. This evening, we have 2 very young and very qualified speakers with us, Alison and Stephen, who will share with us more about the esports industry. Where are the exciting jobs beyond professional gaming, and what you should know if you want to embark on a career in esports. So let me end my opening here and pass on the time to our experts to share their insights tonight.
Thank you, Melvin. And thank you, Alison and Stefan, for joining us today. We're talking about the trends within the esports industry. And maybe let me start off. Alison, you can tell us, esports isn't just about playing games. What's the difference between esports and gaming?
Okay, so I guess you can say the difference is pretty much the difference between playing football and being a professional football player, or loving to drive your car versus participating in a race, right? Anyone can play esport titles or play games. That's just kind of like a casual gamer. But when you are able to participate in tournaments, in leagues, and all this very professional level of playing, that's when you become an esport athlete, when you actually participate in esports. So you can play esport titles competitively, but you might still consider yourself a casual gamer. But unless you're like Stefan, who plays more competitively, he competes and he trains every day with all that schedule, specific things to train, that's when you really do it as an esport.
Yeah, and you've actually answered my next question about some people saying that being in esports industry is more like a short-term hobby, right, rather than a career. And maybe I'll go over to Stefan, right? And you've been in esports for a while. Like just now we're having a chat before this, and from the beginning of the professional scene, you've been there, you've won titles and all that, right? How does it feel like to be a esports athlete or esports player?
Yeah, actually in the beginning, I was thinking the same way as most people. Like it's just a hobby, a very short-term one. But as I progressed, everything changed, and it's been over like three years now in a competitive scene. So I've grew a lot since then, and I think it has been a wonderful yet very stressful journey for me.
And what do you think about the esports industry as a whole? In like for you to take it up as doing something professionally, right? Do you see a lot of a future in this industry?
Yeah, I believe the esports industry is growing, because back then it was only players going against players, but now within a team of, for example, my game, we have 5 players in the team, and it's behind the 5 players in the team, there are actually 10 to 20 supporting roles that will support the team in the competitions. They include the coaches, the analysts, and even psychologists for mental health. So it's definitely growing, at a very fast pace.
So it's not just about yourself playing as a player, but it's also about all the support that you're getting. You mentioned about there's a crew behind that supports you and all that. And all these are actually, besides the job as a player, there's also all these support roles and all that, which is great.
Actually, I have a question for Stefan. Just like I think Alison mentioned about, it's almost the same as other professional athletes. But some of the professional athletes have certain lifespan, right? If you're a professional footballer, I think late 20s, early 30s. But what is the lifespan of an esports athlete?
Yeah, actually, to reply to Melvin's question, it's actually quite similar, because being in this competitive scene for 3 to 4 years, I do feel my reflexes getting slow. So it's quite similar, because many professional players, when they deteriorate in terms of maybe reflexes, they go on to be coaches or maybe content creators. So you can compare it to maybe your traditional sports like football, where the players actually become coaches as they get older. Yeah.
So it's a long career.
Yeah, and Alison, you have anything to add around, because you spend quite a bit of time working on developing not just for the players, but some of the support roles and other roles. You want to talk a bit about that?
Well, I guess to add on to what Stefan said, coming from that whole, you need very fast reflexes. So we know that to play your esport titles, it's not just playing the game as it is. You need that really fast cognitive skills as well to come in to be able to hold lots of information at the same time. You need to strategize, you need to communicate with your teammates. There's a lot of things to do. So I understand that the career of athlete might not be as long, but then when they get to progress to becoming coaches, we do have some of these athletes that come to us and be like, hey, I want to be a coach. What are the kind of stuff I need to learn now that I come from a player background? What else do I need to learn to become a coach? And then someone will be like, oh, I think I have enough knowledge to be a caster. So they come in to be a commentator for esports. Or they come into, oh, I want to analyze. I want to be an analyst, talk with other shoutcasters and talk about strategies during tournaments, right? So there's a lot of this front-facing roles that athletes can get into after that whole career ends. But also we got to think about the kind of support roles that support these front-facing talents, like who organizes the tournaments, who marshals your athletes, or when do you come for which event and stuff like that. So yeah, there's actually a lot of roles within esports. Yeah.
A lot of what you described may be quite foreign to our audience, right? In terms of what you talked about, and you might sound like and argue that it's like almost like some future skills, right? And we actually have a question coming through from Zoom talking about COVID, right? And how COVID has affected or has not affected esports. And I think COVID has definitely been very challenging, but at the same time, it has accelerated certain things, and it sounds like, in my view, certain aspects of things in like esports has actually been accelerated. How does everyone feel about the impact of COVID on esports? How has it impacted you, in a positive or negative way?
Before COVID, we used to have a lot of offline tournaments, and I do enjoy them because not only it's paid for holiday for me. It's being on stage and playing with a lot of supporters cheering for us. It's just a very different feeling having to play the same tournament online, just the five of us in a room. So it's impacted a lot. Not only that, but also the views of the tournament, because it's just a different setting if it's an offline tournament with a huge stage. It's just something people want to.
In terms of the atmosphere and all of that. So instead of you flying around for your holidays, for your for your tournaments, and now what happened that we've brought the major tournament to you in Singapore, right? M2 is coming up next week, and are you? Actually, if I kind of stay with you a little bit, one of the questions we have, right, is what's your toughest moment in esports? I
would say the toughest moment for me is to juggle my university studies while also being in the competitive scene, because it's always quite unfortunate because my exam period will clash with the tournament period, and I hardly got time to meet my friends or sleep because I have to focus on both, and it has always been very tough for me.
Alison, anything about how does COVID impact?
Coming from as a spectator, I do enjoy watching quite a bit of esports. So I agree with Stefan on the whole experience of going to tournaments. You can't replace that, going down to a stadium and cheering with a whole bunch of like-minded people and just going at it for your favorite teams. So I'm sure Stefan feels that kind of cheering does help boost a bit of confidence. And for spectators, it's a different feeling watching on your TV at home. And then on the other hand, coming from the tournament organizing side, having to do workshops and all that for esports, it's been a big relief that everything is online, because esports is digital first, right? We started digitally first. So having to push everything back online is pretty familiar to us. So there wasn't too much of a disruption there for us. And instead, we get to do a lot more because schools are online. It makes it easier for us to come in to educate them through the online platform as well. Yeah, so it's been good and bad on both sides, depending on what you ask.
I think at least for from my point of view, for esports, COVID affected a lot of sports. They couldn't be conducted. At least for good or for bad, esports could be conducted even though it was online. And someone argued or said that when we weren't sure before COVID if esports was a sport, right? Some people just weren't sure, and there's arguments on all sides. But now with COVID, at one point when someone said, "Oh, esports became perhaps the only sport," right? So that's something. But actually, it's a good time to address perhaps misconceptions, right? If when you speak to people, or people say, "Hey, you're a professional player," what are some of one common misconception that you think others have about esports or about yourself as a professional?
The very one biggest misconception of professional esports players is that they're just playing games, and it's nothing serious. I mean that's how my parents think of it at the beginning. But however, when I went on for competitions after competitions, and eventually there are articles that feature me and my team, and we made it for SEA Games representing Singapore. My parents did change their misconception of being an esports professional player. So I was quite glad that they understood what I was striving for, instead of always thinking I'm wasting my time on something irrelevant. Yeah.
No, but earlier, I just, because I'm a parent, I think, right? So I think I share your parents' concerns that, if you're just playing games, right, then where will you end up, right? But I think what you said earlier was something that I took quite seriously, that you had to juggle, right, also the studies part. And I think that is something that perhaps you could also explain why do you need to, why not just focus on the playing, right? Because I think as a parent, I tell my children the same thing. Hey, you can play, but don't forget the other part of your life, because it's beyond just the gaming, right? Yeah. So maybe you have to share why do you have to struggle between balancing both and not just concentrate on one?
So an example is I made quite a few friends from Indonesia playing the same game, and I know that a lot of them quit studying they dropped out halfway from university, just because the basic pay of being an esports professional player in Indonesia is already higher than their university grad pay.
Okay.
So it is definitely not happening in Singapore. And I do know that it's a lucrative business to be content creators there also. So they, apart from being professional players, they do content creations, mainly on YouTube, to showcase their gameplay and work. And they're earning, I would say, a very big figure. And that is where they have a very big fan base and a population that is huge. Compared to Singapore, it's a lot smaller, and if I were to stream my gameplay, I would get like a very small fraction of viewers compared to them. So it's just not sustainable for me, at least for now. Yeah, maybe until the industry has grown.
So I presume the training part is also in terms of you say content creation and all that. You can't just know what to do, right? You need to go for some training programs to sort of teach you that.
Kind of. You can, of course, learn a lot of this from the internet, but having some formalized workshops that you can go to that is very fixed on how you can be a content creator in esports, how you can shoutcast specifically for esports. These are very useful skills that people can learn and pick up if they want to get into the industry. So, for example, if you want to do product management or sell sponsorships for esports specifically, there might be workshops that you can do that for. As compared to I'm just learning how to sell brands and sponsorships generally, right? So there are definitely workshops here. in Singapore. Like the academy runs quite a few of these. Yeah.
Okay, so let us know if you are interested. So
Yeah.
thank you both, Alison and Stefan, for your sharing. I think to conclude this part of the discussion, I just wanted to build on what Stefan mentioned earlier, that esports is actually an entertainment industry. It's not just one particular individual. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused many governments around the world to impose lockdown measures and to restrict travel. In fact, just this morning, we heard that our neighbor, Malaysia, has imposed a state of emergency. So with so many people cooped up at home globally, the appetite for entertainment is growing exponentially, and esports is benefiting from this trend. One of the world's biggest streaming platforms for gamers, Twitch, is estimated to have grown its audience by 31% just last year alone. Steam, a video game digital distribution service, also hit a record number of users, with over 24 million users using the service at a single point in time. So in Singapore, we are also seeing an increase in the viewership on live streaming platforms, including Facebook and YouTube. This will give rise to new job opportunities, such as content creators, shoutcasters, and social media community managers. So this will lead me now to the next section of our panel discussion, where we'll talk more about job opportunities within this industry. And I think many in our audience will be keen to hear from both Alison and Stefan about what are the jobs that they can do besides just the traditional role of professional gaming. So maybe back to you, Nicholas.
Yeah, thank you for that, Melvin. And the next segment we want to talk about, dive a little bit more into what are the opportunities within the sector, right? Whether locally or regionally, as you mentioned, Stefan. And besides the playing in front of the camera and all that, what are some of the support roles behind? So I'm thinking maybe to open up with Alison, right? Just maybe give us kind of a bit of overview. What are some of the roles behind the scenes that are kind of interesting, that Singaporeans can think about in terms of potentially for their careers?
So a lot of these roles look like your conventional roles you get outside of esports as well. Right, like we've talked about a little bit about sponsorship sales, partnership management, business development even, marketing, content creation. These are jobs you find in any other industry. So these are definitely the same jobs you will find in esports as well. Right, but the more unique ones to esports will be what we've mentioned, the shoutcasters, which are basically the same commentators you get in football, the ones who analyze your gameplay and all that. You get that too in esports. It's just a lot more fast-paced and action-paced. What else?
Coaches?
I'm thinking, so like Stefan can bring in the ones you see more on the team side of things, right? Like, I guess, coaches?
Yeah.
What kind of support do you get as a player?
Yeah.
Right.
As a player, I'm in the front line, so I mean there are the finance department, the marketing department, which I've never seen before in the organization. I've been only hanging out with
You just get the money in your bank. You don't have to see the finance.
Sometimes you count them.
I'm just glad I get paid every month, but I do hang out a lot with my coaches, my analysts, and also my managers that plan the training schedule for us. So these are some of the job opportunities apart from jobs that are in every sector, as Alison mentioned earlier.
Okay. So I can understand the coaches need to preferably be players before, right? But what about the analysts and the rest? Do they generally need to have some playing experience before they can be part of your supporting crew?
For me, I don't think any playing experience is needed because these are they'll be collecting raw data, like maybe the hero pick rate and stuff like that. So there won't be a need to have a playing experience. Yeah, it's just very raw data.
Okay.
That reminds me of how when working with Stefan a little bit, we also see a lot like a rise in roles such as nutritionist, a lot of sports science, sports psychologist.
So what you can eat and what you cannot eat
Yeah.
on game day. Okay.
Like if you eat a lot of fast food, then you get a bit lethargic and things like that. So we do see quite a bit of that coming up.
Yeah.
You know, how do you focus a lot? How do you get into the flow during tournaments and things like that?
Yeah, like I can relate to that because during our important games, actually we do prevent eating. We try not to eat before games because if we have a heavy meal, we'll go into a food coma, and that's going to impact the game a lot and our performance. If it's quite similar to maybe a tennis match where you see players eating banana, and that's what our manager instructed us to do because it's actually a very good temporary supplement, and also it keeps us focused.
So important question. Have you ever got into a food coma during a tournament?
I've never gotten into a food coma during a tournament, but in all the practice games we have, when we do it after dinner, it's the results is actually quite bad. Yeah, because we are generally sleepy and unmotivated. Yeah, we just want to get over with it and rest.
I guess I see some questions coming through from Zoom, but I think one of the things, if I'm someone who plays a lot of games or as a parent of a child, I think one question, if perhaps Alison or Stefan, you can talk about is how do you actually enter the industry? Like how do you prepare? What kind of courses do you take? Right, there are not many out there today, right? So if a player or someone who plays a lot of games or a parent say if my child wants to enter the industry, we know it's not very structured or defined at the moment, but what are some of the thoughts around how do you get into the industry? How do you get into the roles? Are the roles lucrative? Do they pay a lot? Right.
I guess I can't speak much on the pay wise because I don't know much. I only
Varies.
Yeah, it
It
varies
varies.
depending on where you
Yeah.
are, even for the players.
So if you support Stefan,
I
you
think
get
Stefan
paid more.
Yeah.
Stefan must be paid a lot because they feed him a lot.
Yeah.
Enough, right?
and what not to eat. Yeah.
But if we talk about, you're very right when you say that there's not much formal
Options
pathway
right
or
now, yes.
options.
Yeah.
Of course, there are a lot of workshops that we have here that can teach you all your skills you need to get into esports. But if you want to talk about how you as a person can then come in, it's more of seeing your passions, being able to see that you want to get into the industry because your skill sets to come to esports is pretty much the same as any other industry. Like we said, you can be marketing for another company and you want to come into esports, it's fine. But then are you passionate about esports enough to want to have a job here? Are you passionate enough to want to learn more about all the upcoming titles in esports? Yeah, so qualifications or pathway-wise, not so fixed, but passion, I think if you have no passion for esports, it'll be very difficult to come in. Yeah.
So I think that if you're already playing a lot of the games, that's where your interest lies.
Yes.
And if you really try to find a job in this industry, I think, and you're not very sure, I think you can let us know. And I think we'll be more than happy to provide certain guidance in terms of
Definitely.
where you can find the training and what type of jobs that are available. Right?
In fact, this is an area that Skoga is working closely with Melvin and NTUC and with a lot of tertiary partners as well, like Republic Poly, Informatics, ITE, to try to have this a bit more defined, right? Things are growing very fast, very dynamic, and so it's just also there's some kind of like catching up to do as well, right? Yeah. Actually, back to Alison again. There's also a question about, is this a very male-dominated sector or industry, right? Do you have any thoughts about kind of like, is this the sector that actually has a lot of opportunities for ladies or females?
Well, I guess maybe at the start, it's very male-oriented at the start. Yes, but now you have like your global esport fans is like at 22%. It's a pretty high number and it is getting higher. the more we are exposed to esports, right? So with that, you have a lot more prominent females working in the industry. You have female esports league that started in Singapore that's like kind of Asia-wide now. You have tournament organizers where the leads are all females. There's a lot more female role models coming out now in esports. So when the younger generations are exposed to all these women role models, they will see and be like, hey, that's someone I can be. And that definitely will slowly become a nice virtuous cycle of having more girls in the industry, and then more of them become players. And then like, hey, maybe I don't want to be a pro, maybe I want to get into shoutcasting even.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Are there any
good.
specific unique challenges that female gamers face that the male do not?
Wow. Good question. I guess as a gamer, some discrimination is to be expected. Maybe back then it's very bad, but now I guess girls have started proving themselves to be able to play at a level playing field, because esports, unlike traditional sports,
Not physical, right?
correct.
Yeah.
So you can kind of play together on a level playing field, and it's very inclusive.
Yeah.
So with that level playing field there, it's more equal. You get less discrimination.
So maybe Stefan, have you been bitten by a female before?
Not physically.
In the game.
In the game.
In the game.
And not your mom, yes.
Thankfully, I've not, because I've been training at the highest level.
Yeah.
But I do know that, like even for EVOS, they have a female team back in Indonesia, and they play better than most of the male players I've seen. So actually, they can be just as good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's an equal playing field,
Yeah.
like what
Yeah.
Alison says.
Indeed, I think some of the traditional barriers in traditional sports or other careers may not be so in esports. I remember hearing someone was organizing an esports tournament. I try and remember, I think it's maybe Pakistan, right? And he said that he had 8,000 girls take part in the tournament,
Wow.
right? And I was like, that sounds really strange. And it says, yeah, because the girls normally do not get to take part in the physical sporting
Games,
games and all that. So this is their opportunity, right? Yeah. I think I want to actually go back to Stefan, right? And say, actually, now you are at the peak of your career as a pro player. Have you considered what's next? What's next after a professional playing career? Have you considered what you would do?
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities for me inside the esports industry and also outside. I've just graduated from university with a mechanical engineering degree, so I can look to fall back to my degree. But I'm more interested in the industry, and after finishing my pro player career, I might be a content creator myself, like many others that follow this route. Also, I'm quite interested in being the back-end business of any sports organization, for example, EVOS, and it's something I'm looking forward to try.
Great, thank you. I think you actually addressed one of the questions that came from Zoom, right? That someone who's 35, right? Is there any potential role or career? Is 35 too old in the industry, right? And actually, what you just talked about, there's a certain progression, right? And not just yourself, right? We've seen a number of those who may play professionally. There are some who play professionally quite long into their careers, right? We have a Singaporean called Ice. He's been playing professionally for, I want to say, almost more than 15 years, and made millions of dollars, right? And maybe one more thing I want to dig into. Just now you mentioned, Stefan, about your colleagues or counterparts in countries like Indonesia who actually make money, make good money as compared to, let's say, if they were a fresh graduate doing something else. And you mentioned specifically about creating content and that they have a lot of fans who watch and make a lot of money, right? I think there's always a lot of curiosity from the audience, stuff about, oh, how much money can you make? I for one have seen in the region some of the so-called paychecks. I was shocked to see for some players who kind of like straddle between a professional player creating content, they take a 6-figure paycheck every month, not every year, every month in Sing dollar terms, right? And I think do you think that is not possible for maybe right from that point of view, not possible for a Singapore player? I know you shared some thoughts earlier. Do you ever see that being within reach of a Singaporean professional? Yeah.
Yeah, I think at this point in time, maybe not, because Singaporeans are not. I think there's still a social stigma of gaming. It's not a sustainable career, but as the industry is growing, and I've seen it throughout these few years, it's very possible, as long as you are at the top of, for example, your game. It's very possible for you to earn that much in a month, because I've seen it in other countries and it's coming in Singapore.
And then that actually kind of addresses the next question that came from Zoom, which is, other than competing professionally, how else can I earn money if I love playing games, right? It's not just about playing professionally. There's other ways we talked about, whether it's the support roles or creating content. I think Melvin talked about it being a form of entertainment, and there's and even though, like Stefan, you said that you don't see in the near future potentially someone in Singapore making 6 figures a month, right, in esports. I would say that one or two of Singaporeans we've seen have come somewhat close, not exactly, but they've made millions of dollars, right, in over a period of time, not like on a monthly basis, and in a sense we can be opportunistic. I don't know, Melvin, you want to?
Yeah. So in fact, the way I see it, I think Stefan and a few others, you have led the way, right? So that because Singapore's base is very small. Now we have 5 odd million people in Singapore, but esports has given us the opportunity to break this boundary, right? Your fan base now can be anyone else in the world, right? It's not just confined to that 5 million, right? So I think as long as like you say, you are at the top of your game, I think you'll be able to. There's no real limit. It's not like only people in Singapore can support you, right? So I think the future is quite bright in this particular industry. So perhaps I'll just do a quick sum up of this segment. I think it looks like from the discussion there are many interesting jobs available in this sector beyond what we do know of a professional gamer. And as Singapore continues with our goal to become the region's premier esports hub, it is crucial that we build a pipeline of capable workforce for the industry. I think all the discussion that we have this evening is beyond just the gamer himself or herself. So on this front, NTUC and SCOGA has been curating and organizing esports workshops and courses. So moving forward, we'll be working closely together to facilitate jobs placement in esports, educational campaigns to address misconceptions about embarking on a career in this sector, and also to raise awareness of career opportunities in the industry. At the community level, we have also been working with SCOGA to use esports for good. So one example is the recent Delta League FIFA 21 online tournament that we recently organized during the December school holidays, targeting at youths. In fact, I think you're still wearing the t-shirt.
Yes,
So esports can also be used to encourage an active lifestyle among our seniors. So this is something that I've been working very closely with Nicholas. So I think games such as Wii Sports and Pokemon Go are simple to play and useful to keep our seniors engaged both physically as well as mentally. So the reason why I'm sharing all this is to show that jobs in esports is really beyond just gaming. This is a huge network of ecosystem to support the industry. And as we shared earlier, especially by our 2 panelists, many companies are looking to hire for various roles, from marketing to public relations to game development. And if all these sound too confusing for you, and if you need help to navigate your career in this industry, do reach out to us and our career coaches, and including SCOGA. I think we'll be able to help you chart your career path in esports.
Thank you, Melvin. Indeed, just now there was a number of companies, the logos were being flashed out. I remember taking a quick scan just on some of the job boards and see that who are the companies hiring, what kind of roles they're hiring. I was surprised to count, I think almost 200 roles open in esports in Singapore. It's definitely growing, booming in that sense. And I think to an earlier question, right, about how do we actually get in, right? And I think there's a question that's coming from Zoom that are there any relevant diploma programs that you can take, which direction to choose or to go. I don't know, Alison, you want to maybe just talk a bit about that, whatever you can talk about.
Okay, so diploma-wise, a few different ways you can go about this. If you're coming to the diploma hoping to learn about esports ecosystem in general, you can take a esports diploma. There is one that Skoga does in partnership with Informatics Academy. I teach that diploma, so if you're coming, you can talk to me to know more about the diploma as a whole. But let's say your goals is generally games, or you want to find out what you can do in games and esports. Then earlier there was a mention of your game design diplomas in Nanyang Poly. So that's also something you can think about. I also came from that diploma, so something interesting you guys can consider. There's also small little workshops, little pockets to learn about specific skills in esports. Let's say you are already interested in doing journalism and you want to do it specifically for esports. Then you can take up an esports journalism workshop, for example. So there are quite a few of this around. I'm sure we will have quite a lot with TUC. We have some with ITEs and even coaching, if you want to do coaching with Republic Poly. Yeah.
I think the good news is that because there isn't that much in terms of by way of structured diplomas or programs out there right now, I think employers are very cognizant and they're very open to hiring somebody who may not have been trained but demonstrate that kind of interest, passion, and adjacent skill sets, right? For example, you mentioned if they're looking for someone for finance, right? So then if you have accounting trained, if you're looking for someone in like communications, right? You have communications trained and all that. At the same time, maybe to add to Alison's point, we've been also hearing about, and Skoga has been working with some institutional academic partners that look at looking at adapting some of the programs they currently have. For example, in sports management, right? I hear that SIM is working with the University of Stirling to do a business degree in sports management, business and sports management, and in there are esports modules, more esports modules that you can take. There are others like Republic Poly, who has this diplomas in sports management, sports business, and they're looking to do more in this aspect. So I think it's coming up. But the good news is that because I said this is quite nascent, it's new, and employers are actually willing to be very open, right? I spoke to one of the top employers, and I wouldn't say who, but I said, what's the criteria, right? And said, number one criteria, you must love the game, yes. Right? You must love the game, and they look at that first, look at the passion. I think the rationale they have is that if you love it, you understand it, then you can learn the skills on the job. And I think this is Melvin will agree with me, this is a reality today, that it's not always that we go through everything through school and all that, and this how we I mean, Melvin works in so many sectors that somehow how people pick up skills on the job and all that. I don't know whether.
So I think today a lot of companies, a lot of industries, I think look beyond the paper qualification, right? So that could be the entry point. But I think a lot of companies now are looking for people with skills, experience, and really the passion. So I think we have mentioned that many times this evening. The passion for the game, the passion for the work, I think that is highly critical. And I think that's what many companies are really looking for.
Yeah, in fact, I would say that on that point, because with esports, it's quite borderless. I think as Stefan would highlight to you, right? He talks about his colleague from Indonesia, from Vietnam, right, across the border, and then it's not just about it's quite borderless, and that's the nature of the work, that environment that we're in today, and therefore the downside of that is that our competition is not just domestic in a sense, and when you are looking for a job or a role, employers these days can have more flexibility to hire across different markets and all that. And to highlight, and again on Melvin's point, the point that actually how you excel in the job, how you differentiate yourself from others, right? The passion, all that is going to be one of the key differentiators. Yeah. So there's another question here that's from Zoom, and to keep your questions coming, I think we have a bit more time just to take a couple more questions. So as a parent, are there any causes for my kid to make him realize that esports is more than just gaming? Before we talk about the specifics, right? Maybe Stefan, back to you, right? How do you make one realize that esports is more than just gaming, right? Like what would you tell like someone, right? A 10-year-old or 12-year-old, and he says, "Oh, I'm very good at this game. I can be esports," right?
It's actually the same way I try to convince my parents. I try explain to them the organization structure, and it's really more of a entertainment business rather than. I mean, I'm a player and I'm in the front line gaming, but there's really more to it. Like how did I get like Domino's sponsors on my jersey, and I get to eat free Domino from
Not on game day.
from time to time. Yeah, it's really more than just gaming. It's even Evolve has their own merchandise, so it's a lot of marketing. We are just I can't put it in words, but yeah, we are the face of the industry, but it's really more. There's a lot more to it.
So I think the simple answer, really, Nicholas, is that for the parent who asked that question, I think bring your child to watch this.
Yeah.
We have been saying that over the last half an hour or so, that really esports is beyond just the professional gaming. I mean, the professional gamer may be the face of the industry, but behind the scene, and I think Stefan has mentioned it a number of times, that he's supported by a large number of people, but beyond his team, in the industry alone, there's many other jobs available, many different roles, right? So I think that's really a huge industry and it's growing rapidly.
What struck me with what Stefan said was the world has changed so much. The way you explain to a 10-year-old, and this is exactly the same way you explain to potentially a 60-year-old. Just kidding. But really, I would say that I think maybe a little plug for Skoga. We do quite a fair bit in this space. With Alison and the team. That in terms of taking a behind the scenes look in the industry, giving a taste, right? Some creating opportunities, and I think as you can go and contact Alison or go to Skoga's Facebook and all that to look at some of the causes or classes that are coming up to also give a taste of like actually it's not just about fun and games, right? The next question on Zoom, and I think this may be one between Melvin and myself, but are there any PCP courses, right? Professional conversion programs. Some of you may be familiar, but it's a bit of a technical term, where it means in esports company, basically we're talking about mid-career switching, and I don't know, Alison, do you have you been looking at potentially courses for those in mid-career? Is there something that any of them that you can talk about?
Mid-career switches. So, like we've said, like plenty throughout the whole conversation. The skills you have, whichever career you're in, is probably relevant to esports. It's just think of esports like the medium which you can apply what you already know. The skill sets you have probably already works in esports, right? You just need to have the knowledge of esports as it is, how the game is played, so on and forth. Right, so if you want to talk about mid-career professionals and whether there's conversion programs, it's basically at the bare minimum, play some esport titles, watch some esport games, and then if you're going to go for workshops in esports, that's the bare minimum you need, just learn the games.
Yeah. And I think I'm just looking at the time, and I think we can maybe take one or two more questions, right? Any before that, anything to, I think Stefan in particular, you're training for this M2 World Championship. You're competing against some of the best in the world, right? Right here in Singapore, the tournament has been brought to you here. Any thoughts, right? This is kind of like maybe a quick commercial break, right? any thoughts around, your chances? What are some of the competition that you might be most concerned about in a sense? Yeah.
Yeah. So last year me and my team, we played the very first World Championship tournament in Malaysia. Yeah, KL, and we didn't do very well. It's quite disappointing, and this year it's even better because it's at our home ground and we can skip quarantine, so it's given an advantage to us, and I hope that our team will make use of it, as well as the other Singapore team that's competing to our advantage against the tournament favourites from Indonesia and Philippines.
So you do have a home ground advantage.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. We have a home ground advantage, right? And I was just having a chat with some folks that say, hey, what's the team that you're looking most forward to for this World Championship, right? One of the biggest, the biggest in the world and in the region. And they were talking about what Stephen said, right? This Indonesia team, that team, and then they mentioned Stephen's team. They said, yeah, they're looking forward to follow, right? Your team's performance in M2. So no pressure for you, none at all. But there's a question that just came out on Zoom, right? And the question is around: are there talent scouts, right? Have any of the talent scouts approached you, right? And I think this person may have a background in sports. Basically the question is around roles that have parallels to traditional sports or to other sports. Have you come across talent scouts?
By talent scouts, do you mean
People going around spotting good players and then train them?
yes. Actually, in my game, I've came across many talent scouts, especially players that play like over 10 hours a day, and they are fresh and young, and those are the ones that actually excel in tournaments as they come in as a new player, because the peak for being a player in the game, we've seen it's quite a trend that from ages 16 to 18, actually they have reflexes that are unmatched. Yeah, so it's I think that's a way of scouting talents in the game.
So, Nicholas, I think there's been quite a number of questions about supporting programs
right.
that we have. So I think to support the explosive growth of the esports industry and to create quality jobs for Singaporeans in this area, it is important that we build clear pathways for the esports community so that people can understand what are the skills needed and the training needed if they are interested in this specific area of esports. So at NTUC, we are working closely with SCOGA to provide easier access to upskilling opportunities, such as esports-related courses, which span from bite-sized modules to SCOGA's diploma in esports and game design. And if you are an NTUC member, we have the Union Training Assistance Program, or UTAP, which provides up to $500 a year to help you defray the costs of going for such programs. We have many youths tuning in to today's session. If you have any ideas to share on how we can better support the growth of esports professionals in Singapore, I would like to encourage you to write to us with your suggestions. We'll study these in detail and perhaps work closely with SCOGA and see how we can incorporate your ideas in our future training programs.
Thank you. Thank you, Melvin. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alison.
you.
Thank you, Stephen.
So maybe I'll close tonight's panel discussion
Okay,
if there's no more questions from the audience. Perhaps I'll provide our audience with a broad overview of the industry and the key job opportunities in this sector. There are currently about 190 games development and publishing companies in Singapore, many of whom are local players such as the C Group, with a few multinationals such as Ubisoft and Moonton. Over the next 2 years, the industry is expected to require about 2,700 info, comms, and media professionals to support the games sector, which will cover roles such as game producers, software programmers, and game developers. We will also see the continued growth in the live streaming industry, where games are hosted on big platforms such as Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. These will also create new jobs such as content creators, shoutcasters, and social media community managers. I think we've discussed this throughout this evening. I hope that our discussion tonight has been useful to all of you to help you get a sense of where the job opportunities are and the avenues for help that you can turn to if you want to chart a career in esports. So with that, I'd like to thank both Alison and Stefan for your insightful sharing tonight, and also to Nicholas for your wonderful moderating and keeping us on time. I hope to see all of you again next month as we continue to discuss job opportunities in other growth sectors. If you have any ideas and any areas of interest that you would like us to gather industry experts to talk about, do let us know and we'll try our best to bring them here for you. So with that, we have come to the end of tonight's session. So good night to all of you and see you next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you.